Fascism is a far-right political ideology. Some of its key tenets include ultranationalism, hypercapitalism, authoritarianism, increased militarism, and elimination of democracy. It was famously said that fascism is capitalism in decay, an accurate summation of the way capitalism, a system defined by our freedom to accumulate capital, or power, over others, is unsustainable and inevitably sheds economic or moral restraints on its practices when faced with turbulence. Fascists utilize, cultivate, or create social hierarchies and marginalizations to create an in-group out-group polarity amongst populations, targeting their chosen other through the ideology imposed upon society. Fascists seek absolute power, and in the right places across this social, economic, and political order can claim it, eliminating civil liberties and workers' rights to maximize the consolidation of capital. As history tells us, however, the system is a disaster for whichever society it's inflicted upon, and has always led to violence, discrimination, warfare, and genocide. Naturally, then, coming across a post like this on my YouTube feed would raise an eyebrow. Left-wing ideas, which centre around egalitarianism, workers' rights and representation, social equality, challenging unjust power structures, and deconstruction of social hierarchies like race, gender, and nationalities, are entirely opposed to fascism. One obvious indicator of this is the quick suppression and incarceration every fascist state takes to left-wing groups and individuals. I left a brief comment outlining my criticisms and received a reply featuring a strong rejection and an invitation to a live discussion. Such conversations fit my research nicely, so I accepted, and the next day we had our stream. In hindsight, there were quite a few red flags. Having to sift through dozens of comments before he finally recognised I was happy to talk to him. The ridiculous bravado and showmanship slapped across all his comments, opening his stream with news footage commemorating recently deceased fascist Charlie Kirk, and then taking the time to make his own tributes.
Rest in Christ to Charlie. Charlie is resting in the arms of Christ.
The arms of Christ? It's not likely. Still, we finally made it to the actual discussion. Let's hear Pastor Owen's opening attempt to discuss fascism. Fascism is an ideology found on the right which weds many themes of right-wing discourse. So, ultra-nationalism, hyper-capitalism, authoritarianism, militant, increased military, and building upon existing societal problems and discriminations and marginalizations to increase the power of a group in society. Now, historically, we've got Mussolini's Italy, Hitler's Germany, and today we see many elements of fascism in nations like America through the Republican Party and Trump. And fascism obviously is also a movement. So in the UK, where I'm from, there are fascists trying to get into government. And it's also a systemic framework. So many nations under liberal capitalism and under sort of contemporary capitalism are influenced by fascism and end up drifting further to the right. So it's something which is many things. It's not one concrete thing you can touch, but it's certainly a right-wing shift to a further right position, a far right position that we've seen historically and today would be a brief starting point. So far, so good. Let's hear his response.
All right, two things there. That's a lot to digest. So I'm going to start you in the very beginning, the very first sentence. Okay, there was an error historically. You seem to talk out of both sides of your being. First, you talked about the origin. First, you talked about the origin being right wing. Is that the first premise or the first claim you've made?
That fascism is right wing.
Its origin is right wing. Yeah, that was the first thing you said. This is why when I'm in the conversations, if you're listening, the 5 people who are watching, this is why I don't allow this type of speech when I'm in dialogue or my interlocutor, and I will often cut you off because you remember the first thing you said, which contradicts the last thing you said.
My laugh gave it away, but this is a very silly way for Jill to begin the debate. He asks for a definition of fascism, a complex and sprawling system, and when he receives one, claims it's a lot to digest, a curious response for someone that has seemingly declared themselves an expert in the field. I ask him to repeat a word in his challenge, origin, and he declares he doesn't allow this kind of speech and will cut me off because he feels there's a contradiction in my statement.
Either the origin is right wing, or it evolved to be right wing. Which one is it? Is the
It's
origin?
both.
It's both.
Fascism is a right wing system.
Okay, originally.
Originally,
Originally, that was your claim. Then you said later that it shifted to
historically,
be right wing.
and today, it's been right wing. Any fascist system we've seen has been right wing. Yes.
Okay. And every fascist system we've seen has been right wing.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the first fascist system we've seen in history?
You would place that probably as Italian fascism, so
Okay.
Mussolini.
So Mussolini. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mussolini was a right winger.
Yes, Mussolini was right wing. His government was right wing.
His government was right wing.
Yes, fascism in
Okay.
Italy. They
All right. So
privatized, liberalized
So
the
what is
economy.
right wing in
Right
America
wing. So
today?
when we think right
In
wing is a
America
colloquial
today,
term,
not in your
sorry.
country, in our country, what does right wing mean?
So right wing would describe capitalistic policies which favor
Capitalistic policy. Let's stop you there.
Here begins the theme of the rest of the debate. Me trying to respond to and answer the questions I'm asked. Jill barely hearing a few words before shouting over me.
And I'm not cutting you off, but I don't want you to
you are. You just
gallop.
interrupted me,
No,
Jill.
no, I didn't. You
You
said
did. I
you
was still
gave the
speaking.
answer. You gave
You
one.
asked me a
You gave
question,
one.
Jill, and I
Hold
was trying to
on.
answer.
My guy. You gave the
Sorry?
answer. I'm not going to allow you to give me 5 answers, and I won't be able to remember the first one.
Jill's question was,
what does right wing mean?
I spoke. So right wing would describe capitalistic policies which favor
capitalistic policy. Let's stop you there.
And Jill claims he has to cut me off to stop me from giving 5 answers, and he won't be able to remember the first one. This is ludicrous. I hadn't finished giving a response, and Jill invents a faux reason for justifying cutting off the answer to a question he'd asked for. You do wonder whether a person unable to remember a handful of sentences is suited to engaging in this kind of conversation.
You gave me an answer. You said right wing.
I said about 5 words, Jill. And then
did you not say right wing is capitalism?
Capitalistic, yeah.
Capitalistic.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to stop you there. That's one claim. Let's prove that claim before you move to the third and the second and the third and the fourth one.
It's not much of a conversation.
So right wing is capitalistic. Okay. Was Mussolini capitalistic?
Yes, Jill.
He was. Mussolini was promoted capitalism.
Yeah.
How so?
So in Italy,
it's economic. Let's get this straight. I want to get this on the record.
You cut me up for I said anything.
I just want to get this on the record. You're claiming the fascist economic policy that they used to control the economy was capitalism. Is that correct? It was a free market capitalism, right?
Lots of right-wing people become upset when the capitalist elements of fascism are discussed. Capitalism is about freedom and free markets. They forget that who and where said freedom applies depends on capital, not on how they personally relate to Adam Smith. Capitalism is predicated on the freedom to accrue capital, the commodification of the world to generate profit, the private ownership of the means of production. Capitalists act in the interest of their capital, and is incentivized and encouraged by the system they design. When placed into the living world, where their business interests clash with the lives and well-being of people they seek to profit from, capitalists use their capital to organize forms of protection, namely the state. The role of left-wing politics, labor movements, and marginalized people has helped drag these states away from the autocratic feudal days towards democracy, civil liberties, and progress. However, just as today, these states were still capitalist. They operate via the buying and selling of goods for profit. They are privately operated by capitalist interests, and they require the forced participation of workers via the placing of human essentials on the market. A fascist society arises when capitalists feel capitalism is under threat. In Italy and much of Europe, amidst the social unrest of the Great Depression, fascism was a movement with many advantages for capitalism. It was used to suppress worker movements, claim state assets for private utilization, and consolidate political power. We can understand it as capitalists using their capital to further their interests and elevate themselves above others, core to the tenets of capitalism. That it does not resemble the freedom conservatives imagine is irrelevant. They aren't the capitalists that won out. Right-wing people claim capitalism gives them liberty, and capitalists use said liberty to seize private control of society and laugh all the way to the bank. So, capitalism as a system, Jill, is a system of power. It favours the free
all systems
enterprise.
are system of power. Hold on. All systems
Sorry,
are
Jill, how are we going to have a conversation if you keep interrupting?
My guy.
You've got to hold on, Jill.
Hold on.
I'm speaking.
All
Jill, how can you say
hold on, sir. Hold on.
Jill, I'm trying to answer your question.
You can't define a term,
Jill,
by saying it's a power system.
How would you know what my definition is if you cut me off?
Hold on, my guy. Hold on.
Jill, you've got to listen.
I'm going to have to mute you. Hold on.
Sorry?
Hold on. Wait
Jill,
a second.
you're interrupting.
Wait a second.
No
I did interrupt you.
You
it's my
did,
show.
Jill. I was speaking.
I'm going to have to mute you now.
So here, after not listening and interrupting a dozen times, Jill decides to mute me. It's the first time it's ever happened on one of these streams. Another red flag about this guy, really. And it won't be the last time in this one.
I did interrupt you. Yes. All systems are systems involving power. What is capitalism? And don't tell me it's a system revolving around power. All systems are about power. Go ahead.
Jill, if you mute me, there's no point in us talking. So
sure.
when
Tell
I
me what
respond to your
capitalism
question,
is, please.
Jill.
Go ahead.
When I respond, if you cut me off, there's no point in us talking. It's a waste of time.
Go ahead. I'm going to cut you off if I need clarity and not let you gish gallop on and on.
No,
I'm asking you
when I'm speaking.
Okay, yes, when you're speaking, you're going to be allowed to speak, but I'm asking you not to be dishonest and define capitalism by saying someone is
Jill,
in
that's
power.
Your definition. Perhaps if Jill had listened to the gish galloping, he'd have realized I never said capitalism meant someone is in power, but that it was a system of power, namely capitalists and their control of societal resources to ensure an uneven distribution of power to themselves. Perhaps I placed too much faith in a serial interrupter. Mission of dishonesty.
Okay, that is not what. First of all, that's not what capitalism is, and all systems revolve around someone being in power. Go ahead now. Define capitalism, please. Go ahead.
Right. There's no point us talking if the second
you said that already.
Go
ahead and define capitalism, please.
So you need to make sure you're not going to interrupt then, right?
Go ahead and define capitalism, sir. Go ahead.
Right, so capitalism, a system of free enterprise, the free pursuit of capital, the ability to make as much money as you can via the means of the market.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mussolini held to a free market.
That wasn't a cue for you to start speaking again. That was me saying, do you agree with that?
Free market. So Mussolini held to free markets,
guys.
Yes,
and all the other stuff as well. A system of power. A system of
so far is anything
and the freedom
fascist.
of power. Jill.
Hold on, my guy. Hold on. You're not going to keep with these long definitions. Let's be succinct.
It's like one sentence, Jill.
Let's be succinct. Yeah, we're going to go sentence by sentence.
That's not how a conversation works.
This is what the left does, guys.
Sentences.
They give you 5 paragraphs and then they say, see?
By 5 paragraphs here, he means 5 words. Frankly, I think people who want to discuss a serious topic like fascism should be able to engage with a greater volume anyway. And it's just a basic feature of conversation to be able to sit and listen to someone speak without shouting over them. But what do I know? I have the evil hallmarks of the left.
I told you.
You need to have a bit of patience.
Hold on. Now, you mentioned free market.
Jill, I haven't finished yet.
No, sir.
It's not a conversation if you cut me off before I've said anything.
Sir, be quiet. We're going to go point by point. You're not going to gish gallop like you're used to hearing on CNN and MSNBC and maybe the BBC.
The second meeting, as Jill continues to lose the plot and fail to hold a conversation. A bizarre remark there about news channels too. CNN, MSNBC, and the BBC, dastardly corporations that let people speak uninterrupted. Perhaps Jill hasn't watched their coverage of political debate, but unless your name is Nigel Farage, you aren't getting a paragraph to speak, let alone 5. Guess they're just too left-wing for Jill.
You said free markets. We're demonstrating that capitalism, that someone who believes in a capitalist society is a fascist. You said free market. I agree, that is a tenet of capitalism. Did Mussolini believe in free markets? Yes or no?
Jill, if you keep cutting me off, then I am just going to leave. There's no point
I'm cutting you off every point you make. I'm not cutting you off and not allowing you to make. Hold on. No, I'm going to mute you again because now you're being dishonest. I'm not cutting you off Well, go ahead if you want to leave. Let them leave. They can't be honest.
And after being muted a third time, I leave. A complete waste of time. Individuals like Jill are examples of right-wing radicalization. They are so enveloped in vapid cultural war nonsense that they can engage in a conversation in such an abrasive and uncooperative manner and then pretend the other person is the one being dishonest. It ties into the themes of this conversation. Fascism isn't a political ideology they have given any serious thought. It's a term with negative connotations that, as with everything else, they instinctively slap onto the left. It wasn't brought up in the live conversation, but Gill's obsession with Mussolini's origin on the left signals this too. It doesn't matter that he and his contemporary, Gentile, abandoned socialism for a right-wing paragraph and actively used their power to have socialists killed. It's just a cheap line to throw at people to stop serious analysis of fascism from taking place, to deflect criticism from right-wing ideologies so obviously infused with the seeds of fascism. Ultimately, Jill makes a case study in demonstrating how right-wing perspectives on politics have to detach themselves from the lived history of the planet to sustain themselves, and perhaps also that terminally unaligned Charlie Kirk fans can't hold a conversation to save their lives. Here's hoping the next stream I do is more of a success.